Hey everybody, Logan Dunning, logandunning.com. Wanted to kind of get in on this discriminated unions talk that's been going on, how, I guess a lot of people want this feature, kind of like a tuple, kind of like the I action result from controllers. And generally what it would allow is, with my limited understanding, is that you can have multiple return types from a function. So, if C# aside, if you think about just any kind of method or function, you say that, hey, whatever this thing is, it's going to return me back a date, right? What discriminated unions are essentially, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments here, is it could bring back one of many things, right? So it could be a date, it could be a time, it could be a string. So it's like those three different things, or whatever you want. If that is correct, and that's my understanding to date, and all the kind of the reading that I've done on this stuff, I really can't see the function or the need of it for me personally. And because of that, and because there's so much talk about it, I thought I would just share what I personally use for getting through this problem of multiple return types and all that stuff. And I believe Telerik does the same thing. It's like the data envelope, way of like returning in the context of an API or returning things from a controller. They use like a data envelope, and that's kind of what I do as well. So here you have like a weather forecast controller, right? And you can see on the get, we're returning a INumerable, or I want to start saying things not in the jargon of C#. I want to just say it as programming. So it's returning an array of this object, whatever this is. And if you go to definition on that by right clicking, you can see that, and you have to forgive me, for some reason on this preview version of VS, it's like formatting my C# like JavaScript, and it's not an editor config problem. I don't know what's going on. So this thing has a date only, which does not have the time, as you would expect. Some ints. This one is a function, which takes this one, and some values to return the Fahrenheit. And then this is a nullable string, and whatnot, right? So in the case of this get, it's always going to return that. So it could return, maybe it be null or whatever. So there's kind of like for the most part, no guarantee of like, there could be an error, whatever. It's either going to be null, an error, or that thing potentially. So what, let me just make a new, controller here as a placeholder for what we will make. And we'll just say get, I don't know, data. I don't even think we have to do that. We could just say name of. Typing on the spot always sucks. I'll just say get data. And then I'm going to just paste this in here. So that way there's no hard-coded magic strings, if that works. For some reason it doesn't. I'm missing a thing. Yeah. Okay. And then I'll just say, I think there's another one. That's okay. So, and I'm going to say, I'm going to return just a single, I guess, async task of, and normally like if you're calling a service or something, or a database, if you're calling something, it'll probably be eventually asynchronous. You probably start with like, just the type itself. Maybe for simplicity, we'll just do that. So we'll say a data result, which is the object, if I could type correctly, that I just made in this guy here. And it takes a T, so I'm gonna say like, first off, probably do weather forecast is actually a good example. So if it's newable, because there's some constraints on that, so do result of that. And then I'm just gonna, for now, just to make this thing, satisfied, I'm going to say, and I canceled my chat GPT. I canceled my Copilot license in favor of chat GPT. I think a lot of people did too. I'll just say return new. Okay. And that should satisfy that. So no errors. And what I'm going to do here is kind of hop over. Maybe it's probably easy to show you I'll probably have to hop back and forth. So this is basically just a wrapper class, or like a data envelope, which will always kind of wrap around whatever you're returning. So how does that work for discriminated unions? So like basically you have your, let's say you have your public T of data, right? And then you have, so that could be, the actual item that you're returning, and then a public, let's say, list of T, and then that's good too. And then I'll say public list of, well, no, it's not T errors. It's I'll just say data list, like if you're returning many. And I think what I do in mine is I only kind of have this, and this is more of a function to return the first one in the list. And I only set the list because, having ones that are lists and not lists, it's just kind of easier that way. But I'll just keep it like this just to keep it easy. So, and then I want to say a public list of, let's just keep this very easy. So I'll say string, and I'll say errors. And then I'll just, to save me the constructor, I'll just new these up for whatever reason. And then basically you'll say public int HTTP code, right? And then we'll default it to like success. And then I guess status code is probably what it's like telling me I'm wrong. Love it. It's probably right. AI is going to take us all over. So something like that. And then you have errors. So what you could do is maybe there's also, it could be errors. It could be, you could load them into errors. You could load them into like status code message, something like that. But if you can assume that like anything down here is like your discriminated union part for like if you're returning multiple things from an API. So let's say you're returning, in this case, like a weather forecast object. But if it errors, you could load up that list of errors, and then instead of returning 200 for success from the API, you return 40, whatever the 400 code is for not found or whatever, the status code, and like I don't know, okay. So I don't really know them off the top of my head. So okay, fine. All right, so that's going to be that, which is, I think you got to like cast that as a in like that, right, to get it, because it is a, yeah, right. Okay, so then if it's a different one, like if I go to definition on this, let's say for example, you could just change the different code, and then you could show a different message on the front end. So if it's a bad request, you would just insert into that list of errors and say, bad request due to whatever, or unauthorized, saying that, oh, he's unauthorized or they're unauthorized because they're missing this policy, or whatever you want to actually put into the message of the code, right? And if it's just an error generically, like like the server crashed or something in the code is weird, you just do a 500, right, which is like the internal server error. And then basically on the front end, like this is, you can imagine a shared class library between like a front end, like in this case I have a Blazor WASM or a Blazor WebAssembly front end, but that could be Angular, Vue, React, Vanilla JS, whatever, and you have a discriminated union, you have a web API that is also shared with this, so they are kind of sharing the same kind of models or shared class library and whatnot, so they both have access to create these and deserialize them without going through some extra hoops or recreating it, or using Open API or NSWAG to generate these models and DTOs in the front end and whatnot. So let's say for example you have a couple hypothetical scenarios, which you could say, okay, this will be like else I'm going to return something, right? So first off, let's say we get the data. Okay, so and we call whatever service. So in this case, you know, we'll wrap it in at try catch, and then let's say we have an exception. What we're going to do first, actually we want to first like new up some that object. So I'm going to say new result equals data result result of weather weather forecast, right? And then once we have that, what's the problem? Our result equals data result. Yeah, forgetting the word new. It's because I'm doing it all on the spot without editing, which is a good time saver, but then you gotta like have that whole improv level of the formatting. Damn. Okay, so basically let's say like you try to get the data, and maybe you would assign some data if it works. So you would say, let's say it works, you call some service, call a service, or DB, or I don't know, another API, another API, right? And then, you know, update this list. So we're going to say like result dot, maybe we'll just say data instead of a list. We'll say data, result dot data equals new. And then we'll say the date. I'm going to stop worrying about the, well, no, it really bugs me. It's like code cleanliness is good. So get system dot datetime dot UTC now. I don't know why I wrote system. On the spot stuff. What is it saying? It's like saying, oh, you can do this in whatever. Oh, date only. Okay. Is there true date only? Date only. Okay, fine. Does it have an example of how to convert that? I wonder if you can just straight, hey man, I'm just gonna, oh, new, oh, date only. Date only. And then I'll just pass in this thing, I guess. Date only. Right, because this formatting is killing me. Last time I used preview on a whim. Oh wait, it puts it back. You know what? Go with the flow. All right. So then the summary is, I don't know, go outside and check. All right. That's how you check the weather. Listen, these people are trying to do this crystal ball thing and figure out what the weather is. That's not how life's going to go. Not yet, at least. I'm just going to friggin' say new. You know, I don't even care. Date only. It's like I haven't dabbled with that, but they've recently updated some stuff to like, especially in Open API and Swag and Swagger, to like allow that kind of stuff to be serialized and deserialized a little bit easier. But to this date, I have not had a need for it, but hopefully in the future it will. So the next thing here is the temperature in Celsius in Canada right now. It is unfortunately, oh, we got, this is int or, yeah, okay. It unfortunately is, oh, probably like -10, right? It's hard to stay positive when the weather is negative. Actually, we should just, you know, flip our mindset about that because, you know, at least we're, you know, at home, you know, instead of, I don't know, not at home or whatever. So, okay, so you have that, and then eventually that thing here will get returned. Or sorry, not now, because you have a new there. So I'm going to say this, change to that. Okay, we're going to return that. So if it's good, then it'll be good. If there's an exception, I'm just going to say result dot errors, and then I'll just say add, and then I'll just, I think I'll just type in a string. I'll say, oh, I'll do an interpolated string and look like some kind of a Greek god. Yeah, it's like, it's always so satisfying to interpolate the strings. I'm going to say error due to, and then some stuff, whatever, message. Okay. And then the results dot, I guess status code is now a, I guess so. sorry, we're gonna do HTTP code or status code dot, I guess, internal. Like you don't have to do it like this. Like I personally just put the numbers, when I'm not on the spot and not at the end of the day and I can remember the numbers, but this is kind of easier to read at least. So it's going to do that if it has an error. So basically this is like saying, if error, right? Okay. So right now we have, this is our ideal result one, like discriminated union, DU result one. Okay. Then we have, that's basically the weather forecast, which is the same one as, here would be the same, right? Same one, right? Here, down here would be essentially a different one because, yes, it's not a different type, but what I'm trying to articulate is in the context of APIs that, with the iAction result and stuff, kind of already doing that to begin with, but you can essentially kind of have some metadata about your, what was sent and stuff like that, and choose whether or not to show certain things. So, theoretically, you could also, if it's an API to front end situation here, you could put as alternative result as instead of like dot errors, you would say, dot whatever, dot error object, and then serialize a different object to system.text.json, and then deserialize it on the front if you really wanted an object. But yeah, so this works for me. And then I'm like, okay, so if there's an error, and then I'm going to say, let's say, for example, if it fails to have some kind of, let's say it's not found. If not found, right, you would just basically say same thing here where, and then just to simulate like some if not found thing. So I'm going to say if, result.data, dot, I guess, temperature, I guess hypothetically we could say, I don't know, less than, negative 100, because that probably wouldn't, in Celsius be a reality that we want to exist upon, or I'm not sure if it's scientifically possible, but that's just off the top of my head here. Like I said, I'm going to post this without editing, 17 minutes already. So if you're watching, I appreciate it. So we're going to basically say this is like simulating not found, which is kind of like a discriminated unit, two, we had two, which was this one, if error, which is like that, right? And then this one is like, it's like this. And basically we're going to say add, not found. And then we're going to say in errors, right? We're going to say, this record could not possibly could, I don't know how to spell it, could not actually exist. Okay, so then you have essentially your other scenario, right? And then this one would be gonna 3. And then because what you could do is, since I'm wrapping this in a try catch here, anything that would be caught in there would kind of, be returned in the, well, it would be caught in the exception loaded here and then returned down here, because once you've caught it, you'll still return to the program flow. Like theoretically you could wrap the whole thing in a try catch, and then, or you could individually wrap each one in a try catch, and you could always increment the errors, right? So then you could potentially get back a single object of, weather forecast. And the great news is you don't have to check for null, because you know that the data wrapper class essentially has newed up everything. It's, it's making sure that anything that implements this or adds this type is newable, right? And everything kind of news itself up, so there's no null checking needed. And then, because you don't want to get these random null errors out of nowhere. And then essentially like every time you'd make a call, you'd do a try catch and then insert another error into the errors list. And that doesn't have to necessarily be a string. It could be a public sealed record with some good metadata, like about, this is a warning or this is a information, whatever it is. And then on the front end, if you're in development mode, you could show those. Or if you're in production, maybe you don't show them, maybe you just log them to the console, or maybe you don't even do that, or you log them to like a different place. So you have some flexibility of like what to show or in these errors and how to react to these changes coming from the API. So essentially, like, let's say for example, you would get a internal server error, probably easy to conceptualize what you would show to the users, some kind of like, not sure what went wrong, please try again kind of thing. And then this record could not actually exist, or like a not found situation, or a bad request. If it's a bad request, you could say, to the users, we don't have all of the data, please fill out the form, try again, kind of thing like that. But this is basically why I wanted to express that for my personal needs of needing to return all sorts of different types, and like not to when you have controllers, you have all of the obvious things like the status codes for HTTP, and you want to basically not lose any of that metadata, but you also want to get back your object. So some other things I've added to this over the years are things like total value, total count, page size, all that kind of stuff. So originally, like I was doing this, but then I found out that Telerik was also creating wrapper classes, and that's not like an M&M like how-to freestyle class. Wrapper as in this thing wraps around whatever you're returning. In this case, a T as in like the generic type you're returning, which could be anything that's newable, and then all of the metadata around it. So there could be tons of other use cases out there. I'm just one person, but this is just an example why I'm not that excited about clamoring about getting discriminated unions, because I have from a front end to API side, I have basically the object coming back, and it will be essentially newed up as a empty whatever. If it's got ints, it'll be 0. If it's got strings, they'll be, I don't know, probably blank if they're newed up or whatever. I don't have to check null because it's already been newed up. And then I get all the metadata I need in order to decide whether or not I should show certain things to people on the front end or not. Yeah. All right. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that you would use an approach like this, or are you currently using a data envelope approach like this? Are you guys excited for discriminated unions? If so, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know exactly why people are very excited about getting that feature. I know there's a lot of talk about it lately, and I think I'm definitely missing what the real need is, even though I've gone through a lot of the different documentation out there and the requests of like what people are essentially looking for. Thanks so much, and have a great day.